All right, we got an easy one here. All of the MLB players whose last name started with the letter E as of May 24th, 2025. We're going to start with Don Iaddi, Ryan Iadis, Bill Egan, Tuck Egan, Bill Eagle, Charlie Eagle, Howard Earl, Scott Earl, Billy Earl, Arnold Early, Bill Early, Tom Early, Jake Early, George Earnshaw, Mike Eastler, Damian Eastley, Ed Eastley, Logan Eastley, Mel Eason, Carl East, Harry East, Hugh East, Luke Easter, Henry Easterday, Howard Easterling, Paul Easterling, Jamie Easterly, Ted Easterly, Eastern, Roy Easterwood, Jack Easton, John Easton, Rowley Eastwick, Elbert Eatman, Adam Eaton, Craig Eaton, Eaton, Zeb Eaton, Gary A, Valley Eves, Eddie Ayers, Darren Ebert, Hi, Ebright, Harry Eccles, Angel Echevarria, Joe Equa, Johnny Eccles, Juan Erickson, Eric Eckenstaller, Dennis Eckersley, and Dennis Eckersley Hall of Famer, Al Eckert, Charlie Eckert, Ox Eckert, David Eckstein, Chris, Eddie, Don, Eddie, Steve, Eddie, Ed, Edelin, Joe Edeline, John Edelman, Cam Eden, Charlie Eden, Mike Eden, Ken Edenfield, Tom Edens, Jake Eater, Butch Edge, Bill Edgerton, Josh Edgin, Frank Eddington, Steve Edelson, Dave Edler, Tommy Edmond, Jim Edmonds, Bob Edmondson, Brian Edmondson, George Edmondson, Paul Edmondson, Eddie Edmondson, Sam Edmonston, Edwards, Bruce Edwards, Carl Edwards Jr., Chancellor Edwards, Dave Edwards, Doc Edwards, Foster Edwards, Hank Edwards, James Edwards, Jesse Edwards, Johnny Edwards, John Edwards, Marshall Edwards, Mike Edwards, Sherman Edwards, Tenny Edwards, Wayne Edwards, Weedy Edwards, Xavier Edwards, Harry Els, Robert Einhorn, Scott F. Russ, Zach F. Flynn, Ben Egan, Dick Egan, Jack Egan, Jim Egan, Tom Egan, Wish Egan, Jack Egbert, Cody Egg, Moss Eggert, Dave Egler, Muck Eggleston, Bruce Egloff, Frederick Elheen, Howard Emke, Red Earhart, Rube Earhart, Hack Eibel, Brett Fibner, Juan Eichenberg, Mark Eichen, Ike Earhoff, Gerhard Eekhoff, David Island, David Illers, Daryl Finnerston, Joey Fishman, Jake Eisenhart, Jim Eisenhart, Harry Eisenhart, Brandon Eisert, Ed Idlejong, Mike Ekstrom, Jim Flam, Scott Flaherty, Kid Elberfield, Scott Elbert, Bryce Elder, Dave Elder, George Elder, Henry Elder, Brad Eldred, Carl Edwards, Lee, Ella, Rhinus Elias, Pete Elko, Tim Elko, Roy Alam, Fraser Ellard, Seth Elledge, Hod Eller, Frank Elleber, Joe Ellick, Bruce Ellington, Brian Ellington, Larry Elliott, Alien Elliott, Bob Elliott, Carter Elliott, Claude Elliott, Donnie Elliott, Gene Elliott, Glenn Elliott, Hal Elliott, Harry Elliott, Jumbo Elliott, Randy Elliott, Rowdy Elliott, AJ Ellis, Ben Ellis, Chris Ellis, Doc Ellis, Drew Ellis, Duke Ellis, Jim Ellis, John Ellis, Mark Ellis, Rob Ellis, Robert Ellis, Rocky Ellis, Rube Ellis, Sammy Ellis, Specs Ellis, Babe Ellison, George Ellison, Jason Ellison, Jacoby Ellsbury, Dick Ellsworth, Steve Ellsworth, Jake Fillmore, Verdo, Elmore, Harry Else, Roy Elsh, Kevin Elster, Don Elston, Narcisco Elvira, Bones, Ellie, Harry Ellie, John Ellie, Kent Emmanuel, Brad Mouse, Alan Embry, Red Embry, Stim Embry, Chester Emerson, Cal Emery, Spoke Emery, Charlie Emming, Frank Emmer, Bob Emmerbeck, William Emmerich, Buster Emmett, Bob Emsley, Angelo Encarnacion, Edwin Encarnacion, Gerard Encarnacion, Juan Encarnacion, Luis Encarnacion, Mario Encarnacion, Kristen Encarnacion Strand, Trevor Enders, Bill Endicott, Adam Engel, Joe Engel, Steve Engel, Charles England, Charlie Engel, Clade Engel, Dave Engel, Rick Engel, Mason Englert, English, Charlie English, Gil English, Jesse English, Lewis English, Louis English, Woody English, Dell Ennis, John Ennis, Russ Ennis, Deech Enns, Enoch, Barry Enright, George Enright, Jack Enright, Jewel Enns, Mutz Enns, Morgan Ensberg, Luis Entenza, Charlie Entright, Terry Entrant, Jack Enzeroth, Johnny Enzum, Nathan Ivaldi, Jim Eppert, Al Epperly, Cody Epley, Audrey Epps, Hal Epps, Mike Epstein, Greg Fraudy, Eddie Frout, Joe Frout, Lucas Eckreg, Todd Erdos, John Eriks, Don Erickson, Eric Erickson, Hal Erickson, Hank Erickson, Matt Erickson, Paul Erickson, Ralph Erickson, Roger Erickson, Scott Erickson, Robbie Erlin, Carl Ermer, Frank Ernaga, Dick Erickson, Carl Erskine, Darlin Erstud, Phil Irwin, Tex Irwin, Nick Esaki, Nino Escarla, Edgemer Escalona, Felix Escalona, Sergio Escalona, JC Escara, Chico Escarrega, Jake Esch, Jim Eschen, Larry Eschen, Alcides Escobar, Alex Escobar, Angel Escobar, Eduardo Escobar, Edwin Escobar, Jose Escobar, Kelvin Escobar, Luis Escobar, Yunel Escobar, Thomas Escobar, Vaughn Eiselman, Jimmy Hesman, Joe Espada, Duke Esper, Raynel Espinal, Santiago Espinal, Gino Espinal, Juan Espino, Paulo Espino, Johnny Espinosa, Nino Espinosa, Alvaro Espinosa, Alderson Espinosa, Brian Esposito, Mike Esposito, Sammy Esposito, Cecil Epsy, Chuck Essigan, Mark Esser, Jim Elslin, Bill Essick, Bobby Estella, Dick Estelle, Dude Easterbrook, Joey Est, Sean Est, Carlos Esteved, George Eastock, Chuck Estrada, Frank Estrada, Horatio Estrada, Jeremiah Estrada, Johnny Estrada, Marco Estrada, Oscar Estrada, Thyro Estrada, Leo Estrella, Andy Fletcherman, Carlos Etchriven, Buck Etchson, Bobby Etheridge, Seth Etherton, Andre Either, Nick Elton, Mark Elites, John Eubank, Yule Eubanks, Wilmer Ewell, Frank Euphema, Fred Unick, Tony Ishkubi, Frank Eustace, Evans, Al Evans, Alex Evans, Art Evans, Ballard Evans, Barry Evans, Bill Evans, Bob Evans, Chuck Evans, Clarence Evans, Daryl Evans, Demarcus Evans, Dwight Evans, Felix Evans, Frank Evans, Jake Evans, Joe Evans, Lloyd Evans, Logan Evans, Nick Evans, Philip Evans, Red Evans, Roy Evans, Steve Evans, Terry Evans, Tom Evans, Ulysses Evans, Williams Evans, Dana Eveland, Adam Everett, Carl Everett, Clarence Everett, Jimmy Everett, Tommy Everett, Average, Bill Everett, Leon Everett, Hoot Avers, Joe Avers, Johnny Evers, Hall of Famer, Tom Evers, Brian Eversgerd, George Ewell, Bob Ewing, Buck Ewing, Hall of Famer, Buck Ewing, not Hall of Famer, 1920 to 1929, Columbus Ewing, John Ewing, Reuben Ewing, Sam Ewing, Art Ewald, Luis Exposito, Scott Iyer, Willie Iyer, George Averich, and Homer Izell.
And again, thank you for tuning into the videos. Don't forget that you can also see me on Patreon at Sammy5436, where it's $1 a month. I also am seeable on Instagram at Sammy5436. TikTok at Sammy5436. I'm on Blue Sky at Sammy5436, though I don't use that often. I believe I'm on Tumblr at Sammy5436, but I haven't used that in at least a year. And you can find me at my business email, thetrapezoidtalks5436 at gmail.com. Any information you need to send to those business emails will be looked at. I generally look at my business email on Wednesdays and Sundays, so just do be advised that I do not always have the ability to respond immediately, but if you do send an email to my business email, and as long as it's not offensive, I will respond if it's something I'm interested in with something positive, and if it's something I'm not interested in, I will thank you for your email and go ahead and say that there may be a future opportunity for us to collaborate if that's something you're interested in.